We've got two very special guests. Anyway, we have a very special evening. However, the description of this event promised you all that I would talk about a little bit about AI and the future of humanity, what it is to be human in the 21st century. So I'm going to have to try and slip that in to at least keep up with our promises. But this evening is going to go in a direction which many of you may not have been expecting, and we are extremely grateful that it's possible, and that awaits us in about, I don't know, 20 minutes, half an hour. First of all, thank you very much, Sally, and the team at Quorum. It's wonderful to be here with you all, and it's slightly strange, because I have spent a lot of the last couple of months in Kumbh Mela in Prayag, thinking about Prayag, and I'm going to be sharing a lot of that with you all. But first of all, how many of you went to Kumbh Mela? How many of you, look at that, 1, 2, 3, 4, about maybe about a quarter of the room, fantastic. And how many of you took Snar? Brilliant, almost all of you, excellent. And how many of you took a Shahi Amrit Snar? 2 of you, 3, yes. And how many of you took more than one Shahi Amrit Snar? So I was very, very fortunate that I was able to make 3 separate visits to Prayag, and I was able to take 6 snans at the Sangam, and was able to spend about 15 nights there. One of those trips was with my dear friend, Her Highness Raseshwari Rajya Laxmi of Jaisalmer, who we are going to hear from in a bit, and you're going to come up on stage. And we're going to talk about our experience right at the beginning, the day 0, Paush Purnima and Makar Sankranti, when we were together. Then the second visit was with my dear wife, Meetu, and our 9-year-old daughter, Amaya, and we were there on Mauni Amavasya, and the days around that. And then I made a trip with my brother for Magi Purnima. So I was able to visit in different ways with different people who all mean a lot to me, and it was a very special time. Now, I am going to flip through some slides and say some things that might surprise some of you. I hope all of you find something that's interesting, and you give me some patience with some of the other bits. So throughout this, I'm going to be sharing some videos. Some of these are from some dear friends, Utkarsh and Himanshu, who had drones in the air, which give us these beautiful visuals, and some of the photographs taken by my brother and by friends and myself. So here we are. This is the Makar Sankranti Shahi Amrit Snan, where we were on Raseshwari and myself. We were there that night, and we'll come on to that later. Okay, so Prayag is Tirthraj. So one of the things I want to talk about is what Prayag means. Okay, so what's the Prayag, and particularly the Yag, and also what Tirthraj means. And forgive my pronunciation, it is terrible, but hopefully you can be patient with me. Okay, so the word Tirthraj this is the king of pilgrimage places, is a kind of loose English translation. But more than that, a tirtha, as I'm sure many of you know, is a place where you can cross over, where you can go beyond this mundane world and experience the divine. And Prayag is the Tirthraj. It is the place beyond any other place on earth, and in India that is Bharat, where you can go beyond just by stepping foot within the Prayag Mandala. Now Prayag, the Yag is Yagya, offering. Pra is the foremost, the ultimate. So this is the place of the ultimate offering, the foremost offering. And it's a place where Prajapati is said to have carried out a Yagya. And it therefore is right at the core of a whole series of stories, which have many different versions, in the Itihas, in the Puranas, related to offering and related to Yagya. Now what I think is quite interesting about Prayag, as we're going to come on to, and the Kumbh Mela, is that when we talk about going to Kumbh, we are thinking more about Snan than we are about Yagya. So although there are Yagyas going on, there are Dunas and the Sadhus are sitting around them and so on, we'll come to that. But it's a very, very, very simple act that anyone can do, which is if you can get to Prayag, you can get to the Sangam, you can immerse yourself, regardless of who you are. No priests are involved, no pundits, no ID checks, nothing. And it costs nothing to go in the water. The only time it costs something to go to Prayagraj and to take a snan was during the British East India Company rule, when a pilgrim tax was introduced of 1 rupee per tirthyatri, which is equivalent of a month's worth of living costs at the time. Unbelievable. And one of the reasons why we know that is that there's a description of the collector of Allahabad, as it was, saying how disappointed he was because the crowds were so great they had to let people in for free for a few hours. Anyway, fortunately those times are over. Prayagraj is Tirthraj. Now the word Tirt, and this is something I only actually learned in the last couple of weeks. If you go back to the Proto-Indo-European roots, you go back to the origin of this word, Tirt actually has the same root as the word trans in Greek, transcendent. Transcend, to go over. Transhumanism. So the word trans and the word Tirtha are related. That is how common some of these concepts are in our great ancestral common past. Okay, so I was fortunate enough, many of you were fortunate enough, to be tirthyatris, to be pilgrims, to go on this journey, to have an experience where we could cross over, we could experience something beyond the here and now. Now, were any of you Kalpvasis? Do any of you have any relatives that have done Kalpvas? So Kalpvas is when you spend 30 nights from Posh Purnima to Magh Purnima, living on straw, on the banks of Mar Ganga, close to the ground, close to the sands, eating simple, uncooked food, maybe some dal chawal, taking snan 3 times a day. And the President of India, the first President of India, of independent India, Rajendra Prasad, he did that for 3 years in a row. So Maha Kumbh Mela, 2 years, and then the final year he did it was in 1954, which was the first Maha Kumbh Mela after independence. Okay, so we have tirthyatris, we have Kalpvasis, and then of course we have the Sadhus, who we'll come to in a bit. Now, I've spent some time, quite a lot of time, particularly in December, but in the run-up, and then also after that, going through Puranas and Itihas. So finding all the references in Mahabharata and Ramayana, in Matsya Purana, Agni Purana, Skanda Purana, trying to understand where does this tradition come from, where did the stories come from, what is the importance of this Tirthyaj, of Prayagraj. Okay? And there's a picture of me with Professor Vaidyurya from Allahabad. This is in Allahabad, Kant's an amazing house, his family home. And he has this incredible collection of Prayag Mahatmyas. So the Mahatmyas are for some of you might get the reference if I make this joke, the travel influences of the day. So these were texts that were used and traveling around the country, all corners of India, taken by the Pandas, taken by the Prayagwals from Prayagraj, the priests, to explain why it was so important for people to come to Prayagraj, why they could achieve benefits for themselves, moksha for themselves, for their ancestors. So these are amazing texts because they are our earliest kind of like travel influencer, spiritual textbooks, guides, explanations of what you should do, what the rituals you should do are. As you can see, there's lots of lovely ones from the end of the 19th and early 20th century in this collection. So I've been going through those and then comparing them and seeing what's different between each one. And you can do the same thing with the Mahatmas, or with the Puranas. Now, here is a character, a wonderful character from Indian history that I had never heard of. Now, have any of you heard of Vishvasa Devi? Ratnesh Jha has just left the room, and he's probably one of the only people that might know this. Has anyone heard of Vishvasa Devi? My goal in life is to make Vishvasa Devi a household name in India that is Bharat. Because Vishvasa Devi was a queen. She was a queen of Methila. She ruled northern parts of modern-day Bihar for 12 years. She was a fantastic political ruler in the 15th century. But what really won my heart was the fact that she is a scholar and a poetess. So she has a beautiful command of prose. She was the patron of Vidyapati, who probably many more of you know, the cuckoo of Methili. But she actually wrote herself. And because she was a scholar, she provides us, Vishvasa Devi, the goddess of the universe, provides us with the earliest compilation of all of the references to Prayagraj and Ganga Snan, Mundan, Turpan, Pindnad, all of the rituals that we associate with Maha Ganga and with Prayagraj. And here, I'm going to, you may have already read this while I was reading, while I was speaking, but I'm going to read this out to you because it's just a paragraph of, obviously an English translation, summarizing some of the key points. 15th century, so it's over 500 years old. And remember, this is a queen speaking. Even the deities themselves await for the starting of the pilgrims. The ancestors continually sing for a descendant that will start for Maha Ganga as a pilgrim. And of a pilgrim, all the sins get automatically removed, as it were. He goes direct to heaven after death. The rituals described in the Shastras are all expensive. Think of all the yagyas, the huge expense that goes on to these shorter rituals. But, and they're out of access for ordinary people. But pilgrimage, walking on your feet across this sacred land to a place like Prayag, does not entail much difficulty in this respect. It's not expensive, it's cheap. Though it counts for more religious merit than the celebration of sacrifices and rites of yagyas. Poverty is in store for the person who does not go out on pilgrimage. So for those of you who didn't make the journey, sorry, bad news coming up. If a person starts for a holy place, even without his knowledge, so you just do it, you don't even know what you're doing, or why you're doing it, he obtains all his desired objects, goes to heaven, and saves his ancestors from hell. Wow. So this is a queen, 500 and something years ago, a scholar, a poetess, describing why you should go to Maha Ganga, Kashi, and in particular Prayagraj. Now, this is her book. So this is the contents page. So you can see each of these chapters is describing a set of rituals and the benefits you get from them. But I don't know if does this thing work? Oh yeah, okay, right. So one of the things that caught so you've got Namaskara, you've got Abhaya, Kshitra, Snan down here, lots of information about Snans, and then here, Magh, Saptami, Snan. So this caught my attention because it's talking about the month of Magh. Now Maha Kumbh Mela, Kumbh Mela happens January, February, when Surya enters Makkah. It begins and it ends when Surya enters Kumbh, although it's been extended to Mahashivratri this year. Okay, so that made me think, I wonder what's in this. And unfortunately for me, not being a Sanskrit speaker, I wasn't able to go further because there was no English translation of the content. This is, did anyone recognize this? Yeah. Kashi Vishwanath. And this is Princep's idea of what Kashi Vishwanath looked like. Now, Kashi Vishwanath in 1585 was rebuilt by Raja Tolumal with the guidance and the inspiration of Narayana Bhatta. Narayana Bhatta was a scholar in Varanasi, Maharashtrian, Brahmin, and he was a scholar. And his work is called, his main scholarly work is called the Trisali Statu, the bridge to the three holy cities. Gaya, Kashi, and Prayag. But his scholarship is based on Queen Vishwasa Devi. So all of her work is being used by this guy who's much more famous afterwards. So I was on the train. All of the journeys I made to Prayagraj were train from New Delhi station, apart from one from Anand Vihar. And I was on the train, I was thinking, what can I do? I want to know what this queen wrote about Magh, Snan, Prayagraj. So on the train, on my mobile phone, I built an AI app that can translate Sanskrit, transliterate it, then translate it, and can enable me to understand the words and do a tooltip for more information. And I don't know how to code. Okay? So this is the world that we are now living in thanks to AI. I've been able to teach myself enough to be able to build apps using AI, to then use AI to translate Sanskrit apps. And now we've got a brilliant engineer in Bangalore professionalizing it, and we're going to release this free open source at an entry level, and then we'll have faster, more accurate versions over time. But the idea is that all of these Sanskrit texts that haven't yet been translated, we can now get AI to at least give us a pretty good first draft and an idea of what's in it. So when I went into this text, I was able to learn a lot more about the importance of Prayagraj. So here we've got a Google Earth zoom in. Now this is an up-to-date image, so you can see there is the Maha Kumbh Mela, Kumbh Nagar. This is the Sangam Nose. This is the Bridge of Boats. So this is where the Akala Magh, this is where we took our snans. We either went by boat or by foot onto the Sangam. This is the VIP Ghat. This is Akbar's fort. This is Akshayavat. Have any of you heard of Akshayavat? Akshabat is the everlasting banyan tree, which if you jump from it as an act of ritual suicide, you go straight to heaven. One of the only ways that Hindus have ever been allowed to commit suicide is from this tree. Goes back several thousand years, very well researched. Maha Ganga going down here and flowing north. This is where all the akaras were. This is where the Juna Akara, and the Ranjani Akara, so all of the processions of Sadhus were going across here, going up over the railway bridges, the road bridge, further north. Now, this is enormous, as you can, anyone who was there knows the scale of this place, and you've seen visuals. But the Google Earth is a really cool way to kind of like zoom in and understand the scale of what was going on there. There really were tens of millions of people at any one time. I'm sure there were around 100 million during that Nani Amavasya weekend. And this gives you an idea of that scale. Now, I think this is going to zoom out. Okay, that is the Dharam Dwaja of Juna Akara. So, Rudrakshi, Walid, Baba, and various other the famous sadhus that you met. IoT Baba, well, rather dread to bring him up, but that's where he was discovered in the first few days. Now, look at these circles. So, I put these circles on. That is Prajapati Kshetra here. This is Prayag, and this is Prayag Mandala. So these are the sacred mandalas where just stepping a foot inside, you go to heaven, according to the Prayag Mahatmas. And this is a map, Professor D.P. Pandey did this, which pulls out all of the references from the Puranas that this Queen found and then the Narayana Bhatta compiled, and shows all of the sacred sites associated with Prayagraj. So you have a Brahma Yupa in the middle, so a sacrificial or a pillar of offering, which is roughly where the Allahabad pillar is, the Ashokan pillar, which may not, breaking news, may not be Ashokan pillar. There's a theory that it's a pre-Buddhist Vedic pillar. I'm not joking, and it was a British guy from the Victoria and Albert Museum who researched that in the 70s and 80s. A topic for another day. Actually about the sacred tree, Samudra Kupa, one of the 5 sacred wells that touch the ocean beneath the earth. And the story behind Prajapati Kshetra, going back over 1,000 years, into the Puranas and beyond, is that this is where truth emerges from water, Brahma emerges from truth, Prajapati emerges from Brahma, and then all creation emerges from Prajapati. So this is the place where that first yajna took place. The first yajna, the moment when the earth came into existence. When Varaha, as Brahma, before he is become, we always say that Varaha with Vishnu, but actually originally he was Brahma and then it changed around the Gupta period. So Varaha, the boar, lifts up Prithvi, the mother goddess, earth, out of the waters. So the story is that this happens here. In Mahabharata, it's known as Prithvijaya Jaganam, which is the loins of the earth. You have stories that Ganga and Yamuna, Ma Ganga and Ma Yamuna, are Ida and Pingala and Saraswati Sushumna. So there are all of these correspondences, these analogies being created between creation, between life, between rivers, between the story of humanity, the emergence of culture and civilization. Okay. So yeah, big thanks to Professor D.P. Dubey of Allahabad University for putting this beautiful map together. So one of the things that I learned is that you're meant to, after taking a snan, go and visit various places here. So you're meant to go to Nag Vasuki. So this is the, I'm sure you know, the Serpent Lord. You're meant to go to the Samudra. You're meant to go to the Veni Madhav, Adi Veni Madhav, which is down here. Vishnu is meant to be here. Brahma's, Shiva's in Akshayavat, and then Brahma above. So all of these references mapped on. Now what's interesting is that none of them are about Samudra Manthan. Not one of them is talking about Samudra Manthan. Although there is the echoes of it with Nag Vasuki and with some Gupta murtis and sculptures which I'll come on to. But they're not talking about Samudra Manthan, which is of course the story that we all associate with the Kumbh Mela. Now I'm going to talk about the, so what is the Manthan? So you have the churning. You have Vasuki being used by the Devas and the Asuras to churn the ocean of milk. Okay. Now, I found these beautiful videos which show churning of butter. Maybe it's going to play. You can see how the rope is. I mean, have any of you done this in your homes, or grandmothers or relatives who've done this? Yeah. So this is churning of milk to create butter. And maybe it's going to, sorry, that will play. And then the other mantra that is absolutely at the core of Hindu Vedic tradition is Agni mantra. So it's the creation of fire. And I think that's going to appear after this if I put the clips in a sequence. So in the Vedic rituals, rather than using matches and lighters, people would churn fire. And here we go. So here's an example of churning fire. And that fire would continue throughout your entire life. So the fire, as you take on the responsibility for the fire, you keep it at home, and that is the fire that lights your antyasti, that lights your funeral pyre. So the fire is part of your life, and you nurture it, and you use it for all of your yajnas, and they all begin with fire that you've kept alive after the initial ceremony. Now, Agni Mantan is relevant to Prayag because the whole of northern India, from modern-day Afghanistan, Khyber Pass, all the way through to Bay Bengal, was forest. So the Vedic pastoral nomads, the Harappans, let's not get into who's who comes first, who's the identity, but they were in a forested landscape that needed to be cleared, and it was cleared using Agni. So why is Agni the first verse of the Rig Veda? Why is Agni and fire at the heart of everything in Indian culture? Because it was fire that enabled our ancestors to master the landscape. So they burn off the trees, and then the fertility of the soil increases because of the ash, and into that ash, the seeds are planted. Yava, barley, rice. And in the area around Prayagraj is some of the oldest in the world examples of burnt, cooked rice, 8,000 BC, nearly 10,000 years ago. So early agriculture, the first agriculture, we would not be in the Quorum if it wasn't for the agricultural revolution, because we wouldn't have the accumulation of surpluses that enables the settlements of villages and then cities and so on. So this yajna, offering of seeds, offering something of domestic, you think of the yajna, things with the exception perhaps of honey, but cows, ghee, you're offering herbs which do come from the forest, but then it's yava, it's barley, it's wheat. These are products of our agricultural revolution, of pastoral nomadism, of a different stage in our evolution. And fire is the genesis. So some people think that Prajapati offering the grains into the fire is the agricultural revolution, offering the grains into the fire is the yajna, offering grains that gave us the civilization that we live in. Now here is 5th century Gupta caves in Udayagiri in Madhya Pradesh, and on this lintel is Samudra Manthan. So this is one of the earliest, this beautiful 1600 years old Samudra Manthan. And here's Varaha as Vishnu holding a beautiful, it's a shame I didn't zoom in on this, but this is Prithvi, this is Bhumidev, so this is Mother Earth being lifted out of the waters. And what's interesting about this is Guptas in Madhya Pradesh, Golden Age of India, Guptas. Ganga and Yamuna, Ma Ganga, Ma Yamuna, Ganga on a Makara and Yamuna on a Kuma, are depicted on either side of the door, and they're also depicted in this Varaha as well. So you've got the Guptas saying, we are the masters of Madhya Desh, of the Antavedi, of the middle of India, what we now call the Doab. They've mastered this, and the most important place in their empire, this is a little bit before the Magad and Pataliputra in the east, was Prayagraj. So you've got Prayagraj as the center of agricultural revolution, which is recognized in yajnas and some of this early Prajapati stories. You've got Gupta political power projected there. In between that, you have Ashoka projecting power in Kaushambi and the Buddhists and there. So this is the importance of this place. And then Samudra Manthan in Angkor Wat and Angkor Thom. So out in Cambodia, you have these extraordinary Samudra Manthan story rippling out 500-600 years after the last one in the 11th to 12th century into Southeast Asia. Okay? Now here's something that was intriguing me the whole way through my journeys to Prayagraj. On the left is the most common list of snan dates that you would have seen. 6 snans. Do you remember people talking about 6? So we have Posh Purnima, which was day 0, then Makar Sankranti, which was an Amrit Snan, Mauni Amavasya, Vasant Panchami, Magi Purnima, and then March. So that's 6. But every now and then you would see this list. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And this was rare, but I saw it on some of the trains. Some of the special trains had this, but not all of them, only a few. And occasionally I'd see it listed. And this reminded me of Vishvasa Devi, because she had that section on Maha Kumbh Mela, and she had Maha Saptami. And the one that's added in here is Achla Saptami. Okay? And what's interesting is that Panchami is on the 3rd and Saptami is on the 4th. So that's because Tithi's days are not exactly 24 hours, so you can sometimes have them day after each other. So here is a distant memory that was not commonly talked about of this, what is this Rat? What is this Rat Saptami and here called Achla Saptami? And the answer is, it's all about restarting the sun. It's about the fact that the sun, in the winter, as it approaches the solstice, which means the moment of standing still, stops, and you've got to restart it again. And then I realized that if you take the precession of the equinoxes, which Indians have been very understanding, I mean, they're perfectly known about, then you go from 14th of January, Makar Sankranti, Uttarayan, to the 21st of December in the Gupta period, which is when the winter solstice is. So suddenly, the idea of starting this festival on Makar Sankranti in the 14th makes more sense, because actually, it really used to start when the sun stood still and needed to restart. So it's a New Year festival. The Magh Snans and the Magh Mela were a New Year festival. And the key part of that was a little bit after the solstice, the sun suddenly starts moving back in the sky and gets it sets further north. Okay, and that's referred to Vishvasa Devi, but it's lost. Okay, right. So there's something to do with these Vedic rituals, the solstice, the Magh months, that goes back thousands and thousands of years, and the Samudra Manthan story has been brought in on top of that. Here is, and I'm going to now read to you a little bit of poetry whilst I'm playing. Here is a beautiful aerial shot of the very Triveni Sangam waters that we were able to take snan in on Makar Sankranti. And can you, I don't know, well, it's a little hard perhaps at the back there, but the waters here are white, the waters here are dark, Sita, Asita, and in the middle you can see this third colour here. Can you see, can any of you see that? Yeah? And when I start playing it, it'll revolve around. Okay? So the waters of Mar Ganga are white and fast flowing, and they bring mica schist and interesting bacteriophages off the Himalaya. And they're much cleaner as a result of that. And then the waters of Yamuna are much darker. And the poetry of India, beautiful poetry. I'm going to read two bits, one from Kalidas and one from Tulsidas. So 1,000 years separating both of these poets. But talking about this Triveni Sangam. And I'll try and play it while I'm doing it. Oh, there we go. Okay, right. So here's Kalidas in the 4th, 5th century. Look here. The stream of Mar Ganga, mixed up with the waves of Mar Yamuna, looks at one place like the string of pearls interspersed with the luster-imparting sapphires, and at another place like a garland of white lotuses intertwined with the blue ones. Beautiful. And you can see the way the waters are kind of mingling in this way. And then Tulsidas, 16th century, beautiful is the meeting of the white and dark waters of the two rivers, Mar Ganga and Mar Yamuna. Tulsi's heart leaps with joy at the sight of the waves. It looks as if strong groups of calves of the divine cow are grazing green grass. Yeah? And you can see what Triveni, 1, 2, 3. Yeah? Okay. Now, here's a little bit about AI that I promised you. Okay. What is a yajna? An offering of value into altar, into Agni, in order to confer benefits on the yajaman, the offerer, the patron, and the priests, the attendants, and the wider community. Okay? How is it achieved? It's achieved by using hardware, the yajna, the altars, the Vedis, and using software, mantras, language in order to manipulate a virtual representation of reality to confer benefits on its operators, users, and investors.
Wow.
That is exactly what is going on in Silicon Valley today. And I'm serious.
Yeah.
Okay? It is the same mindset, it's the same psychology, and it's doing it with the resources that were available to it then and the resources available now. And when I show you, this is from 1974, this is an Atiratra piling of Agni in Kerala. Look at the bricks being made. This is hardware, this is Jensen Huang, this is NVIDIA. They're building the servers, they're building the machine, the hardware in which the data is going to be offered into. You have the, look at this is the Sarana Chaitya, so this is in the shape of a falcon. So it's a virtual representation of a falcon which is going to ascend to the heavens. But every single brick is in proportion to the yajna. So it's the quantified self. They're taking measurements of the priest, of the patron, and then they're building the altar in relation, in proportion to him. Okay, still sounds a little bit far-fetched. Now think about how they did this. And in order to achieve this, they had to use such intelligence. They weren't, you know, we're all standing on the shoulders of giants, okay? These are the giants in which we are standing. The origin of geometry is Vedic rituals.
Yeah.
How do you square a circle? How do you make 3 fires of exactly the same area? A circle fire, which is the Gahabhatya, the householder's fire, the Adharanyu, which is the square-shaped fire for the offering, and then the Dakshinagni, which is a crescent shape. And you've got to use, and the Silva Shastras are like you have rope and you draw this, it's calculations, geometry, to master space. When do you do it? You need to look at the heavens, the celestial clock that tells us it's Kumbh Mela in Prayag because Jupiter's in Vrishabh and Surya is entering Makka. How do you do all of that? Careful observation, empirical observation, and mathematics. Because you have to do arithmetic, you have to do calculations. So the origins of mathematics are astronomy, which is in order to understand the heavens, to master time. And the origins of geometry are the mastery of space through rituals. And it's not just me making that up, that's established. All I'm doing is joining together existing and established understandings of our past. So here at the end is the burning using Agni of the Yagya Shala and so on. Okay, now what is interesting is that although almost all of you in this room, I'm guessing actually, all of you in this room have attended a yajna. You've either got married by one, or at a house, or at a friend's, or you've attended a wedding, or you know, a death anniversary. With yajnas all the time. Nobody, with the exception of the Charvakas, the Lokayatas, the very, very few people have actually said in Indian history that this doesn't work. People are not saying there's a problem with efficacy. They're saying it's expensive, it's not everyone can afford it, or that there are other paths to the divine. There are other ways that you can internalize the sacrifice instead of it being external, the Upanishadic view, yoga, meditation, dhyan, Patanjali, or you can do it in a relationship with the divine through bhakti, yeah? Through worshipping, through murtis, through relationship with the divine, okay? So you can do what this does, but by taking a snan in a river, or relationship with the divine, or meditation and yoga. But hardly any of those people are saying it doesn't work, because they understand there's something about the mentality between hardware, software that works. Right, look at this. This is the pravagya. Anyone know what happens next? This is an offering of milk from goats and cows mixed together in a very hot pot called a Mahavir onto a fire. It's the key step before his Soma Yagya, which is the key kind of ritual, and it's quite something. Right, it's in slow motion. Have any of you seen this before? Okay, so all he's doing is just offering in milk. That's all it is, just milk. Quite build up, isn't it? Okay, here we go. Right. Wow. Isn't that extraordinary? And I've seen so many videos of these to this day in parts of India practiced. Imagine that 3,000, 4,000, 5,000 years ago, under the stars, in the forest that's just been cleared. Yeah? The power of these rituals and the understanding of the ability to manipulate matter, hardware with language. Okay, so here you go. Here's Jensen a couple of days ago showing his new AI chips. Right, so these are the chips that are going to change the world. So this is the current generation, and he's going to change the next generation. And what I want you to think about is the Samudra Manthan story, which you all know. Okay, so the basic premise here is you've got the good guys, the devas, the gods. You've got the bad guys, the daityas, the asuras, and they have to come together in order to churn, using Vasuki, the ocean of milk, in order to produce the elixir of immortality, Amrit, and Dhanvantari, the healer, the physician of the gods, and Lakshmi, wealth, power, health. Do I sound like Sam Altman talking about the bright future of AI? And what else comes out? What comes out first? Halahal, poison. And when these beautiful things come out, and the elixir and the Lakshmi are there, what do the devas have to do? They have to make sure the asuras, the egomaniacs, the power, don't run away with it. This is a much more powerful analogy for what's going on in Silicon Valley than Pandora's box. Pandora's box is a Western, Greek, beautiful story, very powerful. But with Samudra Manthan, you start thinking about regulation. You start thinking about venture capital. You start thinking, oh, do we do a pact with cyber security? Do we work with the black hats in order to achieve something that's going to benefit society? What risks can we take? Much more complex, same mentality. And these things look kind of like Vedic altars, geometry, space, hardware, software, and so on. Okay, that's myself. On the straw, on Marganga, on the Sangam nose, and you're going to see Her Highness Raseshwari in a very similar pose in the photo coming up. Because she was right next to me at the time. And that's me 28 days later. Where's my Ganga jar? At Prayag station, waiting for 7 hours for the train before coming back to Delhi. So Prayag provides us a way of understanding the human story. It provides us a way of thinking about the modern world, Silicon Valley, a way of recognizing that Silicon Valley, cyber hub, cyber city, are standing on the shoulders of giants that walked in these lands. The geometry, the mathematics, the mindset, the psychology, that have analogies and metaphors that we can use as ways to understand concepts in the modern world and think about things in a different way. And that there is an entirely compatible way with Hindu, Vedic, Indian, Indic, Dharmic civilization and the modern world. And there are also alternatives. And the alternatives are the fact that Asnan, in the sacred waters, I don't know why I'm showing it, I shall move on from this, sorry. I said, there's a yagya, here's some white, okay, I'll leave it there. A snan in the sacred waters, timed by a celestial clock, there's a purity of that experience where it's just nature, natural forces, celestial forces, anyone can do it, it's inclusive, it's very special. There's yagyas which are incredibly sophisticated, require expense and sophistication. And then there are all of these dhyan, these meditations, these yoga, these other practices, which India has experimented with as a way of experiencing a consciousness and a way of being human, which is the opposite of this seeking to master the physical material world through hardware and software. And that's why I find the opportunity to meet the Mahants of Mahanavani so interesting, to meet the Sadhus, and we're coming on to the next bit now. So, right, introducing Her Highness Raseshwari Rajya Laxmi of Jaisalmer. Oh, and I actually have a video to show, look at that, isn't that beautiful, the time lapse. Will you please join me on stage so we can talk for a few minutes about our experience together? If I try and microphone. Yes. I think you said. Okay, right. You do see we have a third chair. Okay. Now, this is what your wonderful school, for some context. Jaisalmer, you obviously recognize the extraordinary Vatnavati girls' school in the desert, which is the most extraordinary school building in the entire world. That's a fair thing to say.
Yes, it is eco-friendly, sustainable. We've used all natural materials, and in the 50 degrees in summer, we can hold classes, so we have no problem. It's made in such a way so that the air kinds of keeps rotating in the building.
Amazing, absolutely amazing. And here we are on the left and tucked up on the banks of Marganga on the night of Posh Purnima, so this is kind of day zero, into Makar Sankranti. And that is where we met. Obviously I know your son, Chaitanya, I'm sure many of you know Chaitanya. But we met in Prayag and we decided to spend this amazing trip where, rather than doing the VIP with the boats, which I did later on, I think you did as well later on, but that first visit, we did it on foot, tirthyatris, in the night, walking for 12 kilometers, I think. So why did you want to experience your first snan, your first Kumbh Mela experience on the Sangam days like this?
So what happened was, I have started this Adhyatmic journey past 6 years. I'm with Chinmaya Mission, and I'm studying a lot of scriptures and studying a lot of Prakran Granthas and vocabulary which is used to eventually understand the Gita or even Upanishads. So the journey started with small baby steps, but it just overwhelmed me because I realized that I knew so little. My education system had not given me that kind of knowledge, which was actually the real knowledge. That is the truth, ultimately. And I had never been to a Kumbh before. My sisters and my other relatives had gone to every Kumbh. And I never got an opportunity, but this time I made up my mind I'm going to be there on the first day itself. And I met Nick on that day in Prayagraj. We stayed at the same hotel.
Yatrik, who are, where? Aditya and, Aditya and Ishita, they've just popped out, but they're here with us tonight.
So what happens is, one thing which the government of Uttar Pradesh had done was VIPs were not allowed on Mahasnan days, which I think was the best thing. Initially, I was in shock because I was hoping the BJP person I knew there would organize a car with a pass and take me through the crowd. We were 10 of us. But when we realized it's not going to happen and we were already there, we said we are not going to waste time. We each motivated each other. There was no way we could reach the Mela ground because our hotel was very far away. So we took a call. We left at 9 o'clock at night. Somehow he arranged some scooters. And we stayed at the Kumbh the whole night, from 9:30 p.m. till 10 a.m. the next day. And all we did was, we had our backpacks, walking shoes, we walked around, and that's where you saw us sleeping on the straw, imitating the other pilgrims. And we were just so motivated, that energy, none of us needed to use the washroom, those 12 hours. None of us felt hungry. We had a little water, I don't think we ever drank that too. And having Nick around was very good because he was the Gora. So he got us into the media the tower, and I was a little embarrassed initially because there was this constant on the loudspeakers of people getting lost. And he was trying to make his reels, and there was this constant, Papu ke papa, main uske niche khadi hoon, and I was like, what the hell is going on? It was a total, it was such a strange experience, but I enjoyed Nick's company that night. We were there on the coldest 3 days in Prayagraj, and it was like there was just mist and it was freezing.
You couldn't even see the moon. It was Purnima, and there was no full moon visible because it was so misty. And on Makar Sankranti, the sun's going to rise. We couldn't see the sun. It was that misty. I think we might. So this was we were in the water at this time. So this is in the middle of the night on that night, and this is obviously a drone photograph. So this is where we took a snan on the Sangam nose. And then this was the morning after. So I think when I say morning after, that was like an hour after this. It's 4 or 5 in the morning.
So while we walked around the akharas, we met all these Naga Babas, we went into the akharas, we just experienced Kumbh at it was beautiful. And around 3 a.m. we were told the Nagas will come for their Shahi Snan, which is the first Snan of the season, of the ceremony, at around 4 o'clock. But they didn't arrive. So Nick, because of him, I got the best Snan, because at 3 a.m. he just jumped into the water, into Ganga. And I was just looking at him and he was like, will you hold my clothes? And I was like, oh my God, if somebody from Jaisalmer sees me, it's such a conservative place. And I'm standing there holding Nick's clothes. And I was embarrassed and he's making a reel in the water. And I don't know what he was doing, 3 a.m. in that freezing water. And I felt so ashamed that, look at Nick, the kind of reverence he has, the kind of, he just respects our culture so much. He believes that this holy dip is going to just change his life and the whole. And I got so motivated that we were around 10 of us, and all of us went into the water, into Ganga after that. And we all bathed at 3 o'clock, and then we waited for the Shahi, procession to start, and we saw everything. And it was, you feel so energized, and like how Nick put it later, he said that it is a Sangam of Ma Ganga, who means she is wisdom. Wisdom is Saraswati. Ma Ganga and then Ma Yamuna. And he said, where is Saraswati? That is us. We, as this huge crowd of people, we are the seekers. We are the ones on this mission to get wisdom. So we are Saraswati. And we are completing the Triveni. So, and then, with Nick, another thing which I really appreciated about him was he was constantly making videos, and a lot of people around would come up to him and compliment him and tell him, thanks to your videos, we know where we are, we know where to go next, we know where the other bridges, we know where to get a scooter. So he actually helped a lot of people over there. So I keep telling him he's a good karma yogi, and he's done so much of service to everybody, and he'll get so much punya. And I'm really, really happy and grateful that I got a chance to visit Kumbh with him.
Yeah, thank you very much. It's very kind of you. So I think that's, when you mentioned this idea that so Ma Ganga, Ma Yamuna, the rivers, and Saraswati is the culture, it's that which flows, and it's something that is also consciousness. So, I mean, we are, a fraction of the filtered consciousness of the sadhus, but their tapasya and their sadhana enables their consciousness to be purer in the sense that it's the divine expression of consciousness without all of the worries that us grihast have, and that's what's going on here in a way, is that coming in through the center of that sangam, that flow of humanity and consciousness. And these are the waters of Makar Sankranti, which is where we were. Did I show you yeah. And then we also went out on boats the next day, so that enabled us to do the rituals, Pintan, Turpan, for ancestors.
So we prayed to ancestors, we took 5 dubkis, we learned a lot. We learned that 3 are for the 3 growths in our life. One is Adi Devik, Adi Bhautik, and Adhyatmik. These are the 3 pursuits we all should have in our life. And the 2 others we had for all the people, our relatives and friends who could not come for the snan, and the 5th one we did for all our ancestors. So I even did for all the animals who I grew up with, all my staff, all the people we lost as I grew up. It was very overwhelming to be able to remember them and pray for their moksha and their forward journey.
Yeah. My personal experience, having done multiple snans, and you then came back a little bit later on in Kumbh, is that each one brought instinctively a different a different reaction. So the first time I was completely overwhelmed with bliss and joy, okay, and then the second was gratitude, was just overwhelmed with thanks to my wife, my family. Okay, Maharaj. Yes.
Om Namo Narayan.
Maharaj, Tavaspi Vashist Giri, Rudrakshwali Baba, we met many times.
Mike.
And, oh, yes. Sorry, I forgot. Hello. Oh, thank you. We met many times during Kumbh. First time we was together, and very kind of you to come, please. Rudrakshwali Baba's home is actually a gufa in a cave in Kedarnath. And here's some pictures from Kumbh Mela. And this is Maharaj Apniga. So this is Raseshwari's actual video from his mobile phone from his gufa. So,
6 months केदारनाथ टेम्पल मैं रहता हूँ और ये जो हेलीकॉप्टर है ये केदारनाथ से जा रहे हैं अभी। ये प्राइम मिनिस्टर माने मोदी जी आए थे वहाँ का, उस समय का ये फोटो है जिस समय में मोदी जी आए थे दर्शन करने के लिए केदारनाथ। ये हमारी गुफा से लिया हुआ फोटो है जी। ये सब नीचे है, अपना गुफा थोड़ा ऊपर है, इससे हाइट पे 2 किलोमीटर जो केदारनाथ टेम्पल से जाना होता है, जो मोदी गुफा के नियर अपना गुफा। ओम नमो नारायण।
Om Namo Narayan. Om Namo Narayan. So, my Hindi is not good, so we're going to, Raseshwari ji, you can help us talk. So, perhaps we could start off by asking Tapasvi how old he was when he took sannyas and Naga Diksha into the Juna Akara.
My name, मेरा नाम है महंत वशिष्ठ गिरी नागा बाबा उर्फ रुद्राक्ष वाले बाबा जी, और मेरे गुरु जी का नाम है थानापति घनानंद गिरी जी महाराज, और हमारे दादा गुरु जी का नाम है सभापति प्रेम गिरी जी महाराज, जो जूना अखाड़े का वर्तमान अध्यक्ष रहा है, अब भी है। मैं जूना अखाड़े में रहता हूँ और ये संन्यास जो हमने लिया, ये मैं पहले बचपन से जो था साधु संगत में रहा, नागा बाबा का सेवा करता रहा। फिर उन्होंने बोला आपको कुछ भजन करने के लिए, सृष्टि कल्याण करने के लिए आपको कुछ ना कुछ करना चाहिए। तो फिर हमें गंगा माई से कसम खाया कि मैं आज से जग कल्याण के लिए मैं तपस्या करूँगा। फिर मैंने 2010 हरिद्वार कुंभ मेला में हमने संन्यास लिया, और संन्यास लेने के बाद 2010 में जब 2013 का कुंभ आया, जैसे केदारनाथ आपदा के बाद मैं नीचे उतरा वहाँ से बच के, फिर मैं आया कुंभ मेला में। फिर मैं वहाँ 2013 में प्रयाग में संस्कार किया, जो हमारे जो है मर्यादा पूर्वक जो है पिंडदान होता है, जो हमारे सगे संबंधी माता पिता भाई बंधु मामा नाना दादा दादी जितने भी हैं पूरे अपना फैमिली को मारना होता है। तो इसमें संन्यास में क्या होता है कि अपना फैमिली को जीते जी मारना होता है। तो इसके लिए जो है फिर जो है उसको शिव का शक्ति, शिव का मंत्र उसका काम करता है। ये हमारा आज से नहीं सदियों से रहा है। हमारा जो ये परंपरा है आज का नहीं है, ये सतयुग से चला हुआ परंपरा है मेरा नागा सन्यासी का। फिर मैं 2010 में दीक्षा लिया, फिर 2013 में हमने आके अपना पिंडदान किया प्रयागराज में। फिर 2019 का कुंभ आया, फिर 2021 का कुंभ आया है। 2019 का प्रयागराज था, 2021 का हरिद्वार था। फिर उसके बाद हरिद्वार के बाद नासिक लगता है, नासिक में भी गया था मैं। त्र्यंबकेश्वर नीलगिरी पर्वत में अपना जूना अखाड़ा है, वहाँ जो है कुंभ मेला लगता है, वहाँ भी मैं जा चुका हूँ, और उज्जैन भी जा चुका हूँ। ये जो सारे चीज़ है हमारे सनातनी धर्म का एक धरोहर है, जो हमारे सनातन धर्म से ये जितने भी धर्म निकला है ये हमारे धर्म से डिफेक्ट हुआ है। सनातन धर्म से ये अदर धर्म बना है। जो हमारा पूर्वज का जो कहना है, हमारा जो संपत्ति था वो शिव भगवान है। हम शिव का ही गण है, चाहे आप किसी रूप में मानिए, चाहे मानव में मानिए या वैसे मानिए। क्या है, कुछ जो ऐसी चीज़ होती है जो प्राकृतिक का चीज जल्दी दिखता नहीं है, और जो प्राकृतिक का चीज ऐसी होती है जिसको भा जाए तो जिंदगी भर परमात्मा को नहीं छोड़ता। भगवान को सबने पूजा नहीं किया, उसको जो है कोई कोई पूजा करने वाला मिलता है जो शिव के हो गए। जैसे हम अपना घर द्वार मकान बाल बच्चे बीवी बच्चे सब त्याग दिया, हमने कसम खाया गंगा माई से, जब कल्याण के लिए मैं भजन करूंगा और करता रहूंगा, जब तक मैं जीऊंगा, जब तक मैं वचन लिया गंगा माई से कि मैं रुद्राक्ष पहनता ही आपका भजन करूंगा। जो भी ग्रह कलेश किसी का होता है मैं पूजा पाठ हवन करता हूँ, उससे जो है ग्रह कलेश विनाश करता है।
I want to say thank you very much. बहुत धन्यवाद।